It's nice, right? They did a
It
good
is.
job.
It is. It works.
All right. Well, Stoney, hey, thank you so much for your time. I'm
Yes.
really curious. Why don't we just start from the top? Like, who are you? Tell me the story. What are you building?
Yeah. So my name is Stoney. Obviously, my company is called Venuehopper. We're building an AI event planner. It kind of just grew on me this hospitality industry because I think it's something that nobody goes out and seeks. It's something that finds you, and then when you eventually get into it, you get drawn and lulled into it further and further. So for me, when I was in college, I planned a lot of events, whether it was for companies, for clubs, and then after I graduated, when I was looking for an idea, I was working on AI stuff. And I realized that there's this intersection that's missing between AI and hospitality, especially in the event planning industry. And so we started this maybe a year and a half ago. So it took us a little bit to draw on it because honestly, I really wanted to avoid hospitality for the longest time because
Why?
hospitality,
Because you're
it's
smart.
it's very hard to move industry. It's a very sticky industry, and people are very set in their ways. But on one hand, it makes it really difficult to work in. But on the other, it's very rewarding when you start to make progress and you actually get people on board, like we have already. It's like people like what you do and they stay with it. So the stickiness works for and against you, right? Um, but yeah, coming back to how I ended up on this, it was me doing these events and really realizing like it's so difficult to get people together. It really is. It's something that, especially post grad, it's not something that happens naturally anymore. It's something that you really need to put a lot of effort into. And so I studied chemical and biomolecular engineering in college. And so it's a complete 180 from when I actually studied in university. But on a conceptual level in chemistry, there's this term called activation energy. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like what it takes to get a reaction started, right? And what a catalyst does, so like things that speed up reactions, all it does is make it easier for that reaction to happen. And so on a conceptual level, um, I thought if I can make a company that brings down the activation energy for letting people engage in person, making events happen, letting people have a reason to get together, then we should conceptually see way more in-person events and engagements in real life. So that's the
Right.
idea of it. That's what we do.
Got it. So take me back to those early days. You're a chemical
Mhm.
engineer
Yeah.
who's throwing events on the side. You have this idea in hospitality. What is like the first thing you do? How do you start?
So it, I guess you start with just talking to the people who are already in the industry. You kind of, you kind of start with a really small solution to a really small subsection of the problem. And so the, I was on two sides of the problem when I was in college. So first I started planning events for orgs. In fact, I planned events for a lot of startups who are trying to make events as part of their go to market. So like
Cool.
dating apps who wanted to go to NYU and say, hey, we want to use this as our initial ICP. Let's do some parties in New York for New York University and actually have this be our ICP. So booking out venues, making the ticketing work, having everybody like come together, everything was a huge pain in the ass. And so like it was ridiculous. And we had maybe like 5 or 6 students would just work on that. And so the reason it was difficult was not because it was technologically difficult. It was just
Mhm.
coordination. It was just a huge coordination. And so what I started with is actually working on the event director side. So working again for the venues and seeing, is the coordination problem one-sided? Is it just the organizer that's having this problem, or is it on both sides? And
Right.
then when I went to the event director side, I realized, yeah, the coordination problem here is visceral because the venues, they don't, they very much need the revenue from private events, but they need to hire additional staff to do it. They need to get
Right.
more hands on board. And it just becomes this problem that the more people you hire, the slower it gets. And so the first thing I actually built was super simple. It was just uh, a couple of responses that are templated for the venue so that they could answer all the basic questions for any inquiry that's coming in for a private event. And that actually allowed us to handle like 3 to 4 times more venues than the normal event directors. The normal event director maybe handles like 4 or 5 places. We're able to handle like 20. And so I was like, okay, clearly just making a small change to allow us to have extra tooling gave us a huge boost. And so that's where I started. And then some of our earliest investors were event directors and owners who realized like, oh, this is really good. We work with you already. We like what you're doing. Why don't you try to turn this into something big? And then here we are.
Wow. And it's also a two-sided marketplace, right? Because you had to get venues on board, but you also have to get, I guess, event planners on board. So how did you go about finding both?
Yeah, event planners, organizers. In the beginning, we did this like really, it was great because it kind of fed into itself, but it's also a little bit hacky. And that's like, we, when we work with a venue, we take in all their inquiries. Like we don't
Yep.
just help the venue find inquiries, we handle their entire event planning logistics. And so most of the venues we work with are pretty high name. Yeah. So the
I see.
inquiries that already come in, the close rate on a typical inquiry for a venue is in the single digits.
Wow.
Mostly
Okay.
because if you're inquiring for a venue and they're booked, that's it. There's nothing you can do, right? The
Right.
person's not changing their wedding because your venue's
Right.
booked. They're going to go find
Yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah. And so there's this great scale, efficiency that comes with being able to offer them multiple selections and say, hey, if you, any inquiry that comes to us, if it comes from any of our 20 venues, we can then send it to any of the other 20 venues. And so we
Right.
increase our close rate by like, we're in like our 20s now. And so like most of the times we end up closing these leads. And so the leads that come to us, we get more leads. And then because we get more leads, we can close more stuff from more venues and the venues love us and then they promote us to other venues. And it becomes this really like virtuous cycle. Yeah.
Wow. That's so interesting because there's like a virality to it and a network effect, right? You get a
Yeah,
high name venue on board. They get a bunch of, I guess, event planners trying to book with them.
exactly.
Um, if you can't fulfill those, you can attach those events to other people within your network.
Yeah. So like even to this day, most of our inquiries are just this big network of inquiries we get from all the venues we work with.
Right. 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 Wow. That's amazing. Well, you've been at it for, I think you said a little bit over a year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's
A
been
year
your
and a half.
biggest, yeah. What's been your biggest lesson so far? What's been like the biggest surprise?
Oh, I
You
have
look
this,
very good. I don't see as many scars on you, you know?
I, you know, I, I was telling somebody this the other day too, and they were like, I have all these problems and it's so difficult. And I'm looking back and they remember all of the losses and they remember all
Sure.
of their challenges, right? And I have this blessing or curse where I have a fantastic memory when it comes to numbers and statistics and like really tangible things. But when it comes to like vagaries, I basically in one ear and out the other. And so I really don't remember a lot of the challenges we face. And it takes a lot of my team members to be like, oh, remember this thing that we struggled with? And I was like, oh yeah, we did struggle with that. I've completely forgotten about it because we overcame it. And then I'm just on to the next thing. So I, to this day, I still think the hardest thing is always going to be that the thing that you're unfamiliar with when you're breaking into a problem at first and you're not familiar, it's so difficult, And
Right.
for example, the venues that we work with, I had a lot of initial relationships already with. But then when we needed to expand and learn how to actually go to market to get venues more virally without needing to spend my time on it, like that took a lot of effort to build out a process that works for most venues. Right. And now we have that pretty well rounded. But when I first started that, I remember my first conversation with like, it wasn't even the venue owner. It was the person managing, like general manager, but kind of the general manager assistant. And
Right.
I was just doing such a terrible job of explaining what we do to him because it was
Yep.
just like, I wasn't sure how to put it. And I didn't really think about it in the terms of present what valuable thing is to them. And
Right.
so it took me a couple of conversations to break that. But now that it's broken, like it's so easy. It takes very little time for us to actually onboard venues. You're like, hey, look, we're offering you free money. Take it. Yeah. Okay, great. And like it's very it's very, very much for like
That's a good
they
pitch.
really get it. Yeah, yeah, they really understand that, Whereas if you talk about
Yes.
AI, they immediately are like, I don't even want to hear this.
But everyone understands free money.
Yep. Everyone understands the bottom line. And so we tell them, we're able to boost your sales very significantly. And we actually increase revenues by up to like 40% for some places.
Yeah.
And so like they understand that very well.
Right. Right.
And so
Right.
for the challenges, it's really just breaking through the first thing. And so even now, whether it's like technical challenge, hiring challenges, fundraising challenge, go to market challenges, all of them just have like a ton of little breakthroughs that you need to make. But then once you do it once,
Mhm.
the problem's solved, which is something that I think
Right.
uh, I didn't realize before because when you're first in the problem, you're like, oh my god, if every conversation goes like this, it's over. It's
Yeah.
never going
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
scale. It's never going to work. But you need to realize that once you start and then once you get over that first maybe activation energy again, once you're able to start it and solve the problem once, uh, you're really able to do it again and again and again. And then it gets easier. And then the hard part becomes a thing that you haven't done yet. And
Right.
so that's also what makes it fun, though. I think it's what makes the day-to-day fun, being able to solve new challenges like this.
I think you're totally right, because when you're first tackling a problem, it's unknown. It feels insurmountable. You don't even
Mm,
know how hard it is. But
yeah.
after you do it once or twice, it becomes a little bit familiar. And then you look at the
Yeah.
next new problem, and then it feels insurmountable again. And then you kind of rinse, repeat, and go along.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. It feels insurmountable because you don't have enough information. You just
That's right.
are blind. And so you
Yeah.
have to try things. You have to not try a solution because you're so far from the solution. You don't even have potential solutions yet. You just have potential paths that might lead you to a solution. And it's fun. And it's something that I also tell my team, like they ask me a lot of questions and sometimes my answer is literally like, I don't know. We don't know. And it's like this thing that uh so I was chemical engineering by trade. And so when I was in college, I actually spent a lot of time in a research lab doing semiconductors. So
Yeah.
like maybe that would have been a more lucrative path looking back, but also working in a lab
Don't
is
tell your
very
parents that.
it's yeah, it's a bit slower and it feels like like when you're working with on the forefront at like a lab, you
Yeah.
face that very frequently. You're like, how do we increase the nitrogen concentration in this specific material? And the
Right.
answer is not even the PhD student, right? Nobody knows. And when you're at that point, especially as a student, you're usually guided through all the hoops in life. You're told this is
Yep.
the next thing. There's a solution. There is a solution. But then when you're faced with a problem where you don't know if there's a solution, you don't even know anyone who knows there's a solution, then you get to really think, oh, wow, wait, I have so many options available to me. I have so many things I can try. And it really is just constrained to what I can come up with. And I think that even though, I joke and I say like, oh, I went from engineering to hospitality. I really think I went from engineering in material science to engineering in a company and social sense. And so they're
Right.
both problem solving. They're both exploring novel solutions. It's just the solution space looks different.
Right. Right. So it sounds like you say your superpower is a fast, quick memory. I'm going to say it's your internal optimism. I am curious, having been through a startup now for over a year, like what are the biggest lessons? What are the biggest surprises you've had?
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I want to give out all the trite advice, which is like,
Sure.
just do the thing, try the thing, which is great. Talk to more people, always talk to more people, which is great. Don't take no for an answer, all of that, fine. But I actually think a really interesting piece of advice that I don't see very often is it's a little bit meta, but it's like,
Sure.
don't, don't try to apply advice that doesn't apply to you.
Okay.
So for the longest time, I kept trying to like, people are, oh, just build the thing. And I was like, a lot of people have a problem like building the thing. I don't have a problem building the thing. I have a problem stop building and go to
Okay.
sell, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking back and I see that the problem is that most people, everyone's different, right? Everyone has a different
Yes.
skill set. And so it makes sense that the advice that would work best for you is going to be the opposite of what helps somebody else. And
Yeah.
so being able to look at yourself and think, okay, what advice do I actually need? What actually like feeds back into me well is critical. Like it's basically like your bullshit detector. Like,
Right.
oh, does this make sense for me? Am I able to actually evaluate, is this the advice I need? Is
Right.
really helpful because then when you go and consume as much advice as possible, you're able to actually filter out for the stuff that's helpful to you. And I consume a lot of I try to consume as much firsthand uh information as possible. So
Yeah.
try not to look at like X doing the post where the AI rewrites someone else's post, which is rewrite someone else's post. It's like a
Right.
copy of a copy of a copy. It's just not concentrated enough for you to learn from. But if you go to the firsthand source, whether it's a long form interview or if it's a really respected founder in the field, or even just somebody who's like, for like my example, like in hospitality, like heads of hospitality groups, really useful to just hear them talk and then take in maybe not advice, but also perspectives that you are missing, but also try not to reinforce only on the things that you know,
Right.
and become a little bit more well-rounded. I guess my advice is be careful on your advice.
No, I think you pointed out something really interesting. It's something I struggled with also, which is when I first started my startup, I had this like vision of what a best founder should be, and it was based off of like Steve Jobs, Brian Chesky. They were like so into details. They're so design oriented. Like that's what I thought a founder did. I like forced myself to do that. But if you know me, I'm like terrible at design and I'm like not detail oriented. So like my team really suffered for it, and I hated every second of it. And I've just through those scars, I've kind of learned that like I need to be my best version of a founder, which
Yeah.
is not necessarily what someone else's definition would be. And it sounds like you've learned those same lessons.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can't try to emulate the ideal of a founder.
Yeah,
Also because if that was the ideal of the founder that made them successful 15 years ago, it's probably not going to work today. Like the
right.
environment changed, so
Yeah,
like I think you're absolutely right. Like you can't just copy. You have to really look at your own skill sets. Yeah.
got it. Well, that's a lot of the business and founder questions. I want to talk about like more the personal questions. I'm curious. So even though you're an eternal optimist, being a founder is hard. It's a hard job. What do you do to keep sane? What do you do to be as happy as you are? You're like the happiest person I met.
Thank you. I do try to be happy because in the process, I always wanted to be a founder. So like I'm already living the dream, even if like
Sure.
my thing disagrees with me. Like I'm already living the dream, right? But oh man, it's so interesting. I was thinking about when we were talking about advice just now, like I have a list of part of my language, but like dog shit advice, which is
Sure.
advice that works for me, but I could not fathomably give it to anybody else.
Now I want to hear these. This sounds great.
And one of them is make your bed every morning.
Sure.
I'm like, that's not real advice I could give to somebody. But for me, when I came out of college, I was living such an unstructured life. I'm fortunate enough that I have huge bouts of motivation, but also it's not consistent. It's a fluctuating curve. And so for me, it was very important to build in structure independent of other people. And so it started with make my bed every morning. Like just
Mhm.
make the bed. And there was like a 2 week period where I was like, I made my bed. That's it. I've succeeded today. And it's good to actually have one thing that grounds you and then start building structure from nothing, which is like, I can't really tell people make your bed in the morning. It's helpful. It's dog shit advice, but it worked really well for me. Um, yeah, like I'm like trying to think of other advice that's like just really bad that worked for me, but uh, yeah, like it is just little things that work. So what keeps me grounded is just whatever works for me. Like, I track my time, which is something I can't suggest
How do you
people to
do that?
do.
Yeah.
I
How do you do that?
literally have a notes app and I write like current time, like today I started work like 10 o'clock work. And then like, 12 o'clock lunch. It's like very messy, unorganized data. And then I give it to Claude and I have an agent that like just fixes all my data for me. And then
Okay.
it produces a calendar that tells me, okay, this percentage of time has been spent on certain categories. And I bucket them into the 4 categories of work,
Yeah.
life, uh, personal health, and then friendship, right? Like, so
Okay.
I have them bucketed just so that I can have some sort of tangible thing
Have
to
you changed
really
your
be aware.
behavior based on this? Like,
Yes. And so like one or 2 weeks, I was like, I spent a total of 8 minutes with friends. And I
oh
was
wow.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is this is something that I don't notice, but also social health. Like especially the company I'm building is designed to help social health like systemically. So of course I need to be more aware of my social health too.
Yeah.
And so it does help, but also it's just so uh kind of like too in the weeds. Like I don't recommend people do this because it's also just kind of scary to look at like, oh my God, I sleep a third of my life. I
Yeah.
like it makes you really want to cut off like doing more sleep. And one of the things I initially started it for my hypothesis was travel. Like I hate commuting because I think it's a waste of time. And like
Yeah.
how much time do you actually spend commuting? It's like 1%, like some negligible amount. And so again, like I can't recommend people track time. For me, it worked because again, I needed to add structure, but it's just it helps keep me grounded even if the effects are not necessarily that.
It's man, so interesting. Stoney, I'm so curious. I know you went to school here, right? But like, why are you still in New York City? What keeps you here?
Oh man, it's the best city in the world.
I
Okay,
know it is.
seriously, it is the best city. I oh wow, like I also really love Shanghai. Don't get me wrong. I spent a lot of time in Shanghai as a kid. And, I went to school there too. And Shanghai is also amazing, but they're, they're amazing for like different ways. Sometimes I wish the customer service in New York City was a little bit better. Like that Asian hospitality is very, very different. But
That's true.
in New York, for example,
That's
I
true.
got a turtle the other day, and I had nothing, no equipment, no nothing. I just went out, bought everything within a 2 block radius, from the tank to the filter to the substrate, and then I was back in an hour and a half. And there's just some efficiency that comes from having such a dense city. That's everything. It's everything. And then also the nightlife is so good. I went to SF for a bit. There's no nightlife there. Place dies at
Yeah,
10.
yeah.
It's amazing. New York is awesome. Why wouldn't I want to be here in New York? I don't know if I'll be here in like 10 years, but also there's the company side. My customers are here. And, it's the best place, I think, to start a hospitality company.
Have you guys thought about expanding outside of New York? Or are you just all in on New York
We have,
for now?
we have plans where we're setting
Okay.
out seeds for some select cities that might not be the cities you're thinking about, but I think work really well for our business model. But,
Ooh,
we'll
interesting. All right.
we'll
I'll
talk
find
about
about
that when
this.
it eventually comes out. Hopefully you just see it.
Yeah. Um, the last question for you is, how can people help Venuehopper? Like, what do you need the most right now?
Well, Venuehopper is really on its like it's pushed to the cap where we're like balancing supply and demand. Like that is the
Yep.
marketplace problem that's always there. So
Yep.
in terms of people helping Venuehopper, I think the best way to help Venuehopper is plan events, even if it's not through Venuehopper. Because if we can get more people to do more events in real life, I think people will start to realize, oh, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't spend my time on Netflix and Twitter, and instead I should go out to this event that's downstairs, right?
Right.
Ideally, there's such a high density of real life events with people that you actually know or at least are acquainted with, that
Yeah.
you can just go and find an event without having to make so much effort. And so obviously, if they're doing events that are within our ballpark, right now we're mostly focused on, community groups as well as business events. If
Yeah.
it's within our
What
ballpark,
size would that be? Like, what size would your ballpark be?
it's like if you're buying out a room and maybe not buying out like a 400 person restaurant, right?
Got it.
So a little, like the range is going to be, medium sized event, nothing too big, nothing too small yet. Don't reach out to us if you have a wedding. We're not going
Sure.
to touch weddings. It's too hairy right
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
Maybe one day. But, we're always also interested in like looking at events. So I was talking to some hackathon event planners too. And oh man, there's just so much nuance to every single event that I love doing.
Yes.
Um, like even, Founders Club events. I love like
Yeah.
seeing how like the group dynamics work as people, fill up the room and then expand into new spaces, and how people start forming the little bubbles to like really
Yeah.
engage. And I think that third phase where people are really speaking to each other is something you guys do really well, right? Like
Yeah.
you can get people beyond the mingle with strangers phase into the we're in a group of people that are just actually having a really good conversation now, and then the night
Right.
disappears. So like do more of that. Do more of that. You want to help Venuehopper? Go see your friends.
So, do more events, get out there. But if you could do it on Venuehopper, even better.
Even better,
There
but
we go. I'm so curious. What's the best event or most unique event that you've seen thrown? And it's okay if you don't say the Founders Club. I know we're a bunch of founders, and our parties are fun, but it may not be the most unique. Like, what's the best
yeah.
one you've seen?
I can't give too many details, but some
Sure.
of the initially before we focused on the segment that we focused on, we had we had a basically period of time where we would take any of it just to
Yeah.
see every
Sure.
single type of organizer. And I think some of the best ones were it's like a big company in New York City, and they were doing their event with us, and it was a cosmetics company, and the stuff that they had there was unbelievable. And I mentally took notes for all of this because they, in addition to using us, also had other people to help plan out some of the vendors and things. And so
Uh,
their event was just amazing. It was a holiday party, and their budget was obviously also crazy. But to
yeah.
be there in that space, I was thinking, wow, this is something that startups are missing. Like we don't get
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
corporate holiday parties the way they do. And they had some headline performers there too, and it was
I see.
really cool to see it. And like that's the dream. Like ideally, I'm like, if you could get
Yes.
some people together, or if you could get events like that to be beyond just the company size, or if you could bring the cost down so that more people could do it, that'd be an amazing world to live in.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's what we can all aspire to be
Yeah.
one day.
Yeah.
And when Venuehopper takes over the world, maybe that's what your corporate events will look like.
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's all of the like founder story portion. Jordan has a bunch of questions around your tech stack, especially around just like
Okay.
new tools you're seeing you love, hacks. It could even be a restaurant, but with the emphasis on just like the things you love to see and do. So I'm gonna let her take over from here. But this was so interesting. Like
Okay.
really,
Yeah. No, this is awesome. I haven't thought about a lot of these things. So your line of questioning is really, really, it makes you think. It's good.
it was fun.
All right,
Jordan.
Jordan.
Free audio post production by alphonic.com.